Hi, David. I just want to start, if we can, just if you want to give yourself a quick introduction, who you are and what you're currently doing at the university.
Good morning, Chris. Yeah. My name's David Pears. I'm a senior lecturer in sports coaching at the University of Bedfordshire, and I lead two courses currently: a BSc in sport coaching science and BA in football coaching.
Nice. And then in terms of those two courses, then what part does performance analysis play? Is that a part of both of those courses, or?
Yeah, it's a part of both courses. We see it as analysis has always been part of the coaching process. But probably 15, 20 years ago, it was mostly done by coaches, and obviously as the field and the sort of the jobs have grown. It's done much more as a specialist process by an analyst who, for us, supports the coach really and gives them information that's going to help them to improve performance.
Yeah. And then just curious to ask, I know all universities are different, David. So are
Yeah.
those core modules for the students? Do they elect to choose them if they want to, or are they kind of bedded in for them to do?
Um, the core for those two courses, but there are some students on one of the course that can do the second year module.
Yeah.
So our football studies guys can do that as well.
Okay.
Um, but there's a little bit of difference between the football studies and the coaching, obviously, but they can do some of the same units.
Yeah, nice, nice. And then, yeah, you kind of touched upon it there as well, David, earlier, in terms of how things have changed over the years. So I'm just kind of curious to see, from your perspective, how the popularity of performance analysis has changed in sport and how that's affected you as an academic, and how you've got to kind of teach that to the students.
Yeah, I think we started to look at it quite a while ago, maybe 15 or so years ago,
Mm,
which wasn't really ahead of the game. That was kind of on the coattails a little bit of a lot of institutions.
mm,
And it took me a little while to kind of try to push that on. But, as I said, it was always part of coaching as such. But obviously, with the advancement in technology and the sort of the packages and that were available at the time, I recognised that it was something we weren't doing, but
mm.
that was becoming a big part of what everybody else was doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So we picked up around then, and yeah, we invested in some software with somebody else, and whilst that was good, we used it for a while. We recognised um, some time ago the need for an online platform, really. And that
Mm.
was where a lot of it was moving anyway. But um, yeah, and just it's really grown. Students were kind of we give it to them if you like, and then like, oh, what's this? Whereas now it's expected to be part of the course.
Yeah.
It's a huge field, and we're finding that a lot of students, even though we don't do a lot of it, and I think maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit. That students are finding work and they're getting good experiences in placements during the course and finding work in it afterwards. So it's definitely a growing part for us. And something we see that's going to continue to grow, for quite a few years to come, I should think.
Yeah, definitely. Just kind of from my experience, David. So when I applied for uni. Obviously, this is going back, I don't know, maybe tw over 12 years. So I wanted to do analysis, and I was looking for unis with the modules, and obviously back then there was
Yeah,
a lot less than there are now. And if I remember rightly, my analysis module was one that I had to select, so not everyone did it. So
yeah,
yeah, there's a kind of a big change from now, whereas most of the courses do have it, and you do now start to see specific analysis courses as well that are just for that. So it's
yeah,
a big change. Perfect. So
yeah,
you mentioned kind of online tool there. I just want to ask you then about the kind of tool. Obviously, you're a user. The university is a user of Imply Online in terms of the video analysis software that you expose the students to. So I just want to ask a few questions around that, David, if possible. So really, kind of first off, why you guys use Imply Online at the university?
yeah. Well, as I said, we were looking a few years ago to move online, and the reasons for that really were it's so much more flexible and usable. So we had a number of MacBooks with some software on it, but we found even as a fairly small university with fairly small coaching units, that it was a case of having to share everything all the time. So they'd have to book laptops out, then somebody would want one that wasn't there and all that sort of thing. So we were looking for an online solution. So we found that yeah, students can then have multiple access. So whether it be on their phone, tablet, laptop, desktop, etc., wherever they are, as long as they can get on the internet,
Mm.
they can use it. So that was really helpful in general, especially as over time, I think students are now maybe working a lot more. Their kind of attendance mode is changing, shall we say?
Yeah.
And that worked very much better for them sometimes. And then obviously the big thing, we were fortunate we kind of came on board pre-COVID, and
Mm.
when that happened, that enabled us to be able to continue almost seamlessly with what we were doing. There wasn't an awful lot of difference. There's some the live recording of matches and things didn't happen, but we were able to kind of use it really well during that time. And
Yeah.
I think, as I say, students almost didn't really notice the difference.
Yeah.
They were just at home. They just didn't come in at all, whereas they would come in, a few hours a week for these units. So yeah, and then since then, I think we've recognised even more how much that's needed. Um, and yes, obviously we've made a commitment to try to stay with you and to try to grow this from our end and yours as well. And I think, as I say, the functionality of it really, really works well. It's, I think, much simpler to use than some of the sort of previous products we had. It's you can get started really quickly and do some really good analysis very quickly. So that really helps the students. It's not, as I say, it's not too difficult to understand. Great online tutorials, lots of support from yourselves. So we found it really, really useful over the past 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah, nice, perfect. Good to hear that, David. I mean, the cloud-based thing is obviously a big pulling factor, especially for an academic course like yourself. Like you mentioned, the students might not be able to get into uni one day, so they can't get into
Yeah,
that room where the analysis suite is. So the fact that they can just do it all from home or do it on their own devices means,
yeah,
again, you guys, we don't need to go out and buy all new hardware because it's, you're not restricted to just Mac or just Windows or vice versa. So
yeah,
yeah, perfect. No, that's really good to hear. I mean, in terms of then, just a question around the analysis tasks that the students might do, and you can base this question on either of the courses or modules, David. So I'm
yeah.
just curious to hear what you have the students doing as part of their analysis task. Do you have them film? Do they go out and film? Do they then code that game? And how does that look like from a student's perspective?
Yeah, so as much as possible, we tried to get them to go out and do that as well. So we're moving more towards getting them to do that involved with the sort of university teams.
Mm.
But some of the students do a lot of coaching, so as long as they can get access to it, and there's no problem with filming children and that sort of thing, then they try to do as much as possible. We've got cameras and HiPod and an IP camera and all this on campus, so they can use all that. We show them how to use it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just get out and we'll just do a little mini match ourselves, or and we'll gradually bring in some of the GPS stuff into it a little bit as well.
Mm.
In terms of the tasks, we're only running 2 units at the moment. We want to build on that, but we sort of separated them off between more of just from this year, more of an individual analysis in the second year,
Yeah.
which has come from another unit in the third year where they're looking at long-term athlete development, and then what talent ID type of approach. So what makes a good player,
Yeah.
and we've brought some of that out of our third year unit into the second year. So they're much more looking at an individual and how they can help improve that individual. And then in the third year, it's much more around the sort of the game and the tactics of the game.
Yeah.
And the way we're delivering it, again, we're just changing it because they were kind of put into the course. And anyway, I've aligned them better now. So we do the analysis units before we do the coaching units.
Yeah.
So in semester one, we'd do analysis and individual sort of technical type approach. And then that supports them in their coaching in the second semester where they're delivering that similar type of information. And then in the third year, they do the tactical stuff in the first semester. And then they'll move into coaching the tactical side of things in the second semester of year three.
Yeah.
So again, it's definitely around supporting the coaching process and their understanding of performance, as well as so more from a coaching perspective than an analyst perspective, if you like. But along the way, they're learning the same tools. It's just what they use it for, if you like. So it's for their own coaching as much as it is to be able to advise another coach.
Yeah. Nice. So if they go out and film a game, whether it just be a mini game between the students, and they are they then uploading that footage and using Impl Online to code that game, to tag that
Yeah,
game and break that down?
yeah. So we probably do the uploading for them, just in terms of ease of cameras and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, and then they develop their own sort of coding windows or panels,
Yeah.
and yeah, we give them tasks around what we want them to look at in particular. And the good thing is obviously they can share it with us. So again, I could be at home, they could be at home, and they're doing something, and they can share it with me so I can have a look at it,
Yeah.
or I could be in my office or whatever. So again, that idea of sort of cloud-based means that again, it's not having to be this sort of sit down with a laptop in front of you and looking at looking at the work they've done. We can do it sort of remotely.
Mm.
Yeah, and that all leads into in terms of the assessment in generally where they'll present what they've been working on. So they'll do it a number of times during the unit, and then at the end they'll do it formally. And we can mostly sort of let them choose pretty much what they want to do in terms of project a lot within a framework.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice, nice. So, I might as well ask you while you're on, David. So, as a lecturer in sport and in analysis, I mean, what kind of advice would you give for students? Maybe they're in they're still at uni, they want to get a career in sport. What would you say is a bit of advice that you can give them?
Yeah, I think experience really gain as much as you can. So taking opportunities, sort of say yes to things really,
Yeah,
and try and build up your experience because that's the one thing we can't give an awful lot of, even when they're here. It's only for 3 years and it's only for so many hours a week, so they've got to go out and get that experience. And whether that be working with a grassroots club or a professional club, or even just doing their own analysis from recordings them on TV or whatever, or
yeah,
footage that we can provide them, they could then still do all the tasks if you like, and even particularly they might want to send that to somebody and say, oh, a lot of people are posting stuff online now about their analysis and that. So
mm,
gain some experience, and then if you like, try to sell that experience to somebody because you can't beat the experience. So
yeah.
really,
No, agreed, 100%. So, yeah, be proactive, gain as much experience. And you
yeah,
mentioned there, kind of, even if it's just video you find online, if it's a grassroots team, it could be a university team. All the unis have
yeah,
sports teams on a Wednesday. They can get involved with, I'm
yeah,
sure. So just things like that, and like you say yes, and just put yourself in those opportunities and try and get as much as you can. So perfect. That's brilliant, David. Thanks very much for that.